I should never have married such an old hag. Younger women are definitely better. I'm embarrassed to be seen with an old lady like you. If I could, I'd go back in time and start my life over." Those were the words Tawny, my ex-husband, said to me 10 years ago. My name is Mary, and I'm 48 years old. I married Tawny, who was 5 years my junior, when I was 33. I was a nurse, and I met him at the hospital where I worked. Tawny had just joined the hospital as a new doctor. Fresh from training, he often asked me for advice. His innocence in always turning to me was endearing, and I found myself wanting to support him. However, given our professional roles, me a nurse, him a doctor, and my being 5 years older, the idea of a relationship never crossed my mind. Still, I couldn't ignore his daily efforts to talk to me. Our frequent conversations naturally led to us dating. I was initially concerned about our age difference, but it didn't seem to bother him, and eventually, it stopped bothering me too. 2 years into our relationship, we got married. But 5 years into our marriage, he started verbally abusing me daily, wishing he had married a younger woman. At the hospital, he was openly friendly with the younger nurses, but I turned a blind eye, not wanting to demean myself over it. Then one day, I discovered Tawny's affair. His mistress was a former patient, a woman I hadn't met since I was working in a different department. She was 10 years younger than me. "You know, with an older lady like you, it seems like we'd never have kids. She's carrying my child now." "What?" Tawny said this with a laugh, as if his infidelity was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't bear the thought of staying with such a man and agreed to a divorce. Naturally, I demanded alimony from both Tawny and his mistress. Tawny erupted in fury. "You should be paying me for staying married to an old woman like you for 5 years. Who would pay alimony in this situation?" He raged, clearly not expecting to be held accountable for his infidelity. Even Tawny's father contacted me, excusing his son's actions as natural for a young man. Tawny refused to pay any alimony, so I consulted a lawyer. I wasn't going to back down after being insulted and cheated on. The lawyer confirmed that I was entitled to alimony, and I left all the proceedings in their hands. Divorce was indeed harder than marriage, as the saying goes. Thanks to my lawyer, I received the alimony and moved out of the apartment I shared with Tawny. Returning to my maiden name. The silver lining was that Tawny transferred to another hospital. "You're just a greedy old woman. I'm glad to be rid of this hospital," he sneered. However, he probably didn't want to face the backlash of marrying his mistress immediately after our divorce. His next job was already lined up, quite the planner. Still, people will talk. I heard whispers about me being the woman who was cheated on and left by her young husband, and it started to get to me. The paranoia became too much, and I eventually quit the hospital. For a while, I did nothing. But being someone who loved working and staying active, I couldn't stand doing nothing for long. I started looking for a new job and luckily found a nursing position at a small maternity clinic 2 stations away from where I lived. The clinic was small, with a minimal staff, but it was a friendly, easygoing environment. "Mary, you're very attentive, and the patients love you. The director is really happy to have you on board," they said. "Thank you," I replied. However, those peaceful days did not last long. A pregnant woman, referred from another hospital, came to us, and when I heard her name, I couldn't help but think, what? Her name was Sally. The same name as Tawny's mistress. Her husband's name was Tawny, a doctor by profession, and without a doubt, he was my ex-husband. Tawny's hospital had no maternity ward, and he had recently moved nearby, getting a referral to our hospital from his previous one. I had reverted to my maiden name after the divorce, and although we had heard each other's names, we had never met face to face. It seemed he hadn't recognized me either, but I never imagined we'd meet like this. I wondered what to do, but felt reluctant to tell anyone that she was my ex-husband's mistress. Days passed without me being able to say a word about it. Then one day, Tawny arrived for a checkup with his wife. He was startled to see me. He certainly hadn't expected me to be here. Nor did I want to meet him in such a place. "What are you doing here?" he asked. His words made his wife realize who I was. "Wait, could she be?" "You came to this hospital to harass us, didn't you?" That was not the case. I had been working at this hospital before they came. I had no way of knowing that Tawny's new home was near this hospital. But Tawny, not listening to my side, accused me as if I was following them everywhere. "You're stalking me to harass me, aren't you?" "Don't be ridiculous. Why would I do that?" "You, a greedy woman who took my money because you were dumped for being old. I can't predict what you'll do next." He shouted this in the examination room, letting everyone know our relationship. I felt the piercing stares, and although I thought Tawny was to blame, I felt terribly uncomfortable. "I'm scared. Ever since I came here, I felt like I was being watched with malicious intent. What if she does something to my baby?" His wife, tears welling up, added fuel to the fire. "Don't let her near my wife. Who knows what she might do?" Tawny delivered the final blow, and the attending physician urged me to leave the examination room. It wasn't that they suspected me, but to calm the situation, they had no choice but to ask me to leave. I understood that patients come first, and I didn't want to stay there either. But I felt so miserable. Now everyone knew the reasons behind my divorce that I wished to keep private. Worried about their glances, I felt increasingly uncomfortable. Moreover, Tawny's wife continued to visit, bad-mouthing me each time. Even though everyone knew I wasn't at fault, the other party was a patient. And an expectant mother, no less. My coworkers couldn't risk upsetting her and affecting her health, nor could they intrude into personal matters. With these considerations, nobody said a word. This only made my situation worse. She had more than half a year until her delivery. I couldn't bear the thought of spending all that time in such an atmosphere. I liked my job, but I submitted my resignation. "It's regrettable, but it can't be helped," the director said, seemingly relieved. I had done nothing wrong, yet I wondered why I had to suffer like this. Exhausted by everything, I couldn't muster the energy to find another job at a new hospital and return to my parents' home in the countryside. They welcomed me without any questions. For a while, I couldn't bring myself to do anything, but feeling guilty about staying home all the time, I started working part-time at a nearby supermarket. It was my first job outside a hospital, but it was refreshingly different and a change of pace. I loved nursing and found it fulfilling, but it was a demanding job involving people's lives. The responsibility was immense, leaving no room to let my guard down for a single day. Moving away from that life was emotionally a relief. Despite being of an age where I didn't want to worry my parents, I tried to manage on my own, but I wished I had returned home sooner. 3 years after moving back to my parents' house, the supermarket offered me a full-time position. They recognized my hard work, which truly delighted me, and I gladly accepted the offer. For years later, a matchmaking opportunity came my way. "Would you be interested in an arranged marriage?" "Pardon?" "There's someone who might be a good match for you." The proposal was brought by the manager of the main store. I was 45 then and had no intention of remarrying, but he insisted. The man was 47 years old, like me, also a divorcee. His marriage had ended for the same reason as mine, a spouse's infidelity. It had been 20 years since his divorce. In the end, I couldn't refuse and agreed to the arranged meeting. Given our ages, it was decided that we would meet directly, without any intermediaries. When I arrived at the designated restaurant, he was already there. As I entered the room, he abruptly stood up, bowed deeply, and accidentally hit his forehead on the table. "Ouch!" He raised his head with a flushed face. Such comic-like situations seemed so out of place, I couldn't help but laugh. "I'm Brian. Thank you for coming today." "Nice to meet you, I'm Mary." Thanks to that initial mishap, we quickly felt at ease. During our conversation, I learned that this arranged meeting came about because he had fallen in love at first sight with me. This happened when he visited our supermarket on a business trip. He had insisted on arranging this meeting after that encounter. Apparently, the store manager was his college senior. "I hope for a serious relationship," he said. Though I came intending to refuse, I couldn't bring myself to say those words. Instead, I found myself wanting to meet him again. After 6 months of dating, we decided to get married. My parents liked him a lot and were truly happy. Life with a husband who always cared for me was genuinely blissful. Given our ages, we never planned on having children. We just wanted to live a peaceful life together. But around my 48th birthday, I fell ill. At the hospital, I was shocked to learn that I wasn't just sick, I was pregnant. I had never imagined getting pregnant at this age, and I never thought my illness was morning sickness. I think my husband felt the same. "It seems to be pregnant." When I told him, he naturally replied, "That's great news. So, who's the lucky parent? Do I know her?" "Yes, you know her very well. She is right in front of you now." "Eh?" "I'm the one pregnant." He looked puzzled at my words, falling silent. It was an expected reaction, I thought. He glanced at my stomach. "Our baby, you and me." As I nodded, his eyes widened even more. He must have been too surprised, thrown into a panic. I had felt the same way after all. "So, does this mean we're going to be parents?" "So it seems." "Really?" "Yes." "Wow." With an uncharacteristically loud and surprised exclamation, my husband hugged me. "I can't believe it. It's a miracle, a miracle." "Is it okay to have it?" Though I never considered not having it, considering our age. I couldn't help feeling anxious about the future. The doctors at the hospital had also asked what I intended to do. I was aware of the risks associated with advanced maternal age for both mother and child. Not everyone around us was supportive either. Some even questioned how old we would be when the child turns 20. The uncertainty of being able to raise a child at this age was also a concern. Yet, the thought of terminating a life that had just begun was unthinkable to me. "What are you talking about? Of course, it's okay." Hearing my husband respond so promptly filled me with joy. I knew it was his honest feeling. But then he began to worry about my health. Considering the potential complications, even for a male spouse, was not difficult. We considered and discussed it carefully. After we also had a lot of discussion and consultation with the doctor, we decided to go ahead with the pregnancy. Both sets of parents were surprised and concerned, but they were very happy for us. We decided to have the baby at a large, well-equipped hospital. The obstetrician was very kind and supportive, which was reassuring. On one of the checkup days, not only the obstetrician but also an internist was scheduled to be present. My husband was supposed to accompany me, but due to unavoidable work, I entered the examination room alone. To my surprise, my ex-husband Tawny was there. Honestly, I couldn't believe I was encountering him again in such a place. "Seriously? A 48-year-old pregnant woman? That's unbelievable." Tawny burst out laughing. The attending obstetrician and the nurses looked confused, but Tawny paid them no mind. "You have no right to say that to me. I'm just worried about you. A grandma getting pregnant? That's disgusting at your age. That's how you speak to a patient? It's unbelievable to say such things to a pregnant woman already dealing with anxiety. And you call yourself a doctor? Who do you think you are? Most of our patients here are high profile, do you understand? It's better for you to leave before you embarrass yourself." "Excuse me, Dr. Tawny." I was going to leave anyway. I wouldn't want to give birth in a hospital with a doctor like you. "Yeah, get out of here. Dr. Tawny, this lady is the wife of a major donor to our hospital." "What?"
"Dr. Tawny might not know since he's new here."
"No way, but she's my ex. I am a stranger to you." Still, what you just said is inexcusable. It's hard to believe those words came from a doctor. I. At that moment, my husband arrived. "Sorry I'm late. Thank you for taking care of my wife." Seeing my angry expression, Tawny's pale face, and sensing the tense atmosphere, he seemed to realize something was wrong. What happened here? Dr. Tawny here was just telling me how disgusting it is for a 48-year-old to be pregnant. Excuse me? Hearing this, my usually calm husband's expression changed instantly. And when I referred to him as Dr. Tawny, my husband seemed to realize that this man was my ex-husband. We had discussed my previous marriage, and he was aware of Tawny's name and profession. So you're Dr. Tawny. You insulted my wife? Well, you see. Insulting a patient? What kind of hospital is this? I cannot trust such a place with my precious wife and unborn child. As my husband finished speaking, a nurse returned with the hospital director. Mr. Bryan. We heard there was some misunderstanding. Director, we chose this hospital believing it was reliable, based on my father's recommendation. I never imagined it would employ a doctor like him. It seems we chose the wrong hospital. I'm terribly sorry. No, it's not like that. This man is no longer a doctor here. What? I just fired him. Director, what are you? I didn't know he was like this. I only hired him because an acquaintance asked me to. We don't need a doctor who speaks so rudely. He won't bother you again, Mr. Bryan. Wait, Director. What are you saying? Quiet. Leave now. Don't ever come near our hospital again. No, I won't leave. I don't want to. Dr. Tawny, shouting after hearing the director, was dragged out of the room by the obstetrician. The director, looking pitifully apologetic, bowed deeply, and we sat back down. However, my husband's anger didn't subside immediately. Did you kick him out because my father donates to this hospital? Would you have let such a doctor continue otherwise? He asked. The director shook his head, denying it vehemently. Actually, Tawny had been at the hospital only for a week. His father, a classmate of the director, had pleaded at a recent reunion to hire his son. The director regretted not knowing his true nature. This hospital's doctors weren't all like Tawny. Our obstetrician, for instance, was wonderful. My husband and I decided to stay for the birth, as long as Tawny was gone. My father-in-law, the president of a major corporation with branches nationwide, donates a portion of profits to medical and welfare facilities. He had recommended this hospital because my mother-in-law had once received great care here. Several days later, I received a call from Tawny. He was begging, almost in tears, asking me to intercede with the director and plead for his job back. Maybe he'll listen if you ask him, he said. Tawny had always had an arrogant attitude, often offending patients. It seemed he had been hopping from one hospital to another because of this. It was unbelievable how he kept repeating the same mistakes. It was sheer stupidity. I had heard even his father had warned him that if he lost another job, there'd be no future for him. Yet, I couldn't help but wonder if the leniency of his father was what had led Tawny to become the man he was. When he called, my husband was beside me. My husband grabbed the phone from me and exploded in anger at Tawny. He shouted that if Tawny ever dared to contact me again or come near me, he would report it as harassment to the police. Tawny must have been frightened because he never called again. Some time later, I stopped by a convenience store on my way home from the hospital and saw Tawny working there. It seemed no hospital would employ him anymore. He was in tears, saying his wife had left him with their child, but I felt no sympathy for him. I decided then I would never go near that convenience store again. The following year, I gave birth to a healthy, beautiful baby girl. No matter what, no matter how hard it gets, I'm determined to raise her with care and responsibility. But my husband, from the moment she was born, was completely smitten. He's likely to be a very indulgent father, something I think I'll have to watch out for.